Ken Ham, who we mentioned earlier, was in the debate with Bill Nye the Science Guy a couple of weeks ago, debating science versus creation. He is now building an ark. Yeah, right. Just like Noah, he is building an ark. Noah's Ark, very hot these days, by the way. So yeah, he's building a $73 million replica of Noah's Ark. He has raised enough money already to do this. It's part of a proposed Bible-themed park that he's putting together in Kentucky, of course, and groundbreaking is planned for May, and it should be finished by 2016. So they got a nice logo there and everything. See the water, the way it goes into the ark. That's pretty good. So it's going to look something like this. And then we also have an image of the park itself. So this is what the park they want it to look like.
They're really anticipating a lot of people. That's a very optimistic.
How much is parking going to be there?
If it's anything like Universal, it's like $75 or something.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy.
And the food there is going to be so expensive.
It's good.
So expensive.
All right, so yeah, so Noah's Ark is very hot right now. There's actually a Noah movie coming out. We thought we'd show you a little bit of that in case you're not familiar with Noah himself.
It begins. When they come, they will be desperate, and there will be many.
Take the ark!
Is it Noah's Ark or is it Gladiator 2? Who knows? Okay. All right, so there's a lot we can go with this. So first off, one of the things, I remember learning about this when I was a kid, about Noah's Ark. And the one thing that always struck me as the most ridiculous part of it was the two animals of everything. Because how would that even, how's he going to get every insect? How's he get, just like, but I know you can't talk about it in a rational way. So
there are 3 monkeys, 2 monkeys and their baby? Fuck you, baby monkey. No, we don't want you, baby monkey. Just your parents. Sorry.
Right, exactly. So so all the rational arguments for why it's nuts and it should be viewed as a metaphor and as an allegory, okay. But how do we reconcile, and again, this goes to a lot of things we've been talking about, but how do we reconcile the people that want to literally believe this versus the people that want to be, how do we exist in the same space? Education, Cathy Ladman.
I choose my neighborhoods carefully. What are you going to do? There are people who just believe this, and there's no talking to them.
Yeah.
How do you explain that? How do you explain all the species being gathered? I really would like to hear Kenneth Ham, or
he's also going to use scientific principles to build the park, which is the part that no one ever talks about. The things that you're going to need, the levers and pulleys, like all kinds. You're going to need stuff that is based in science to do the very thing, while at the same time you're going to denograte science. Yeah,
it's so crazy. Nobody ever talks about, like, what about all the other people who had boats back then? It's this Noah movie. It's so funny. Did you see that there's a disclaimer on it? Because they're worried that it does not represent biblical truth. And so there's a disclaimer for the movie saying that there have been changes made to the true story that we still feel are in essence with the spirit of the truth. And it's like, it's all a fake story. That's crazy.
Who's making this movie?
That's a crazy thing. Darren Aronofsky, who from The Black Swan and Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah.
Darren Aronofsky's Noah sounds so much like a line of dialogue from Entourage. It's not even funny. Like, this cannot be a real movie.
Yeah. So we've had this big burst suddenly in religious films and TV shows. We had the Bible on the History Channel. It was like the biggest rated show of the year. We had Son of God movie, which I think is out now, or it's about
just a cut down of the Bible. It's the same footage, just cut into a movie.
It's the same people, isn't it? Isn't it the same people?
Same people made it, but it's actually, they took like 3 episodes of the show and turned it into a movie.
Is that right? And they did take the devil out, apparently, because remember, everyone was going crazy because the devil looked like Obama in the TV show, so they didn't want that in the movie because it would overshadow the bigger themes. But what is going on here in America? Because on one hand, I do think that the science stuff and rationality is winning. And then on the other hand, now it sounds like Mike Huckabee is probably going to run in 2016. You always got Santorum back there. Like, we don't seem to be able to fully move on. Where is this coming from? The fact that the show, the shows are doing well, the movies, obviously Noah's going to be a blockbuster.
There's a big audience. There's a very big audience. The religious right is very strong, and then you have, the Tea Party is really hanging in there, and there's a very big audience that buys it.
Yeah.
It's all. I mean, look at these mega churches all over the place.
There are a lot. I did the cross-country trip to come here. There are a lot of mega churches.
I think it's a natural pendulum swing. I think as science gets stronger, the religious opposition to science gets stronger because they feel like they are in opposition to science. And so if science is having advancements, then they have to be stronger, they have to be bigger, they have to be louder. I do think science is winning. I think things like that Bill Nye talk, the Bill Nye debate with him was so absurd. His counter arguments about just total,
But did it change any hearts and minds? Because I remember watching it, and he comes back with rational explanations. But if you don't believe it, then I can't imagine the person that's a believer that suddenly is like.
I would say this.
Well, that does make sense.
That's probably true for the most part. But I would say there's very little chance that Ken Ham changed any hearts and minds. And if one of them changed hearts and minds, it had to be Bill Nye. I don't think that anybody walked into it believing science, walked out of it believing Ken Ham. Yeah. But I do think there's a solid chance that 1 or 2 or 3 people walked into it believing Ken Ham, heard what Bill Nye had to say, and maybe
had some doubts.
Yeah, didn't even walk out changed, but walked out questioning.
But but the audience also that they were doing it in front of was basically a Ken Ham audience.
Yeah,
for sure.
These people were not open. I mean, I really don't think that these minds were open.
But it was broadcast. I think it was on MSNBC. Yes. It was all over the web.
But I was raised very strictly Catholic in the Midwest, and going to all boy Catholic high school, and being taught as late as high school. We were taught about like the DSM from 1970 that said homosexuality was mental disorder. Was still being taught to us in the early 2000s as though that were real. That's where I came from, and somehow I ended up. A lefty out here.
How did you break it?
Well, I mean, when I was in junior high, I was a big time, as much as you can be anything, I was a conservative. My parents are conservative. I was excited when George Bush beat Al Gore, and I thought Al Gore was a sore loser and whatever. And within 2 years, I, just started questioning. I mean, the moment for me, specifically, was Stephanie Tubbs Jones, the late Stephanie Tubbs Jones, former congresswoman from Cleveland who died a few years ago in a car accident. She came to speak at our all-boy Catholic school, so we had this black, liberal, democratic woman come speak to a room full of 1,600. We would have a speaker series.
But I wonder who brought somebody like that to your school.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
It was a Jesuit school, so there were some liberal-minded people there. She was asked about her view on abortion at that speech, and the school booed her. A bunch of 1,600 white men booed a black lesbian, or not lesbian, sorry, black liberal Democrat. I don't think she was a lesbian. A black liberal Democrat. Democratic woman on abortion. And I remember at the time being so disgusted and just being like, don't know about this. And then slowly teachers and stuff, start to have an effect. And teachers have an effect. That's, I think, your education speech, or your education, angle, your speech.
I'm so Does it sound like that? Sorry.
No, I think you're totally right. I think that's what happened to me. I found teachers that opened my mind and made me question things, and eventually, I ran away to New York.
But I think that's the key. If your mind is closed, it's closed. And if there's no way in, there's no way in.
So in the spirit of open minds, my final question on this will be, I know it's easy for us to sort of be glib about these people and the belief system and all that, but should we just let them have their park? Should we let them have their God and eat it too? You know what I mean? Is it really that bad if they just have their park that they can go to? Or just because of the political system and everything else that it actually is, because they can vote against people's rights?
I think the problem is...
Well, you can't...
Yeah, I think they should have the right to worship whatever they want, and they should believe whatever they want, I think, but as the old saying goes, your rights end at your fist and my nose. That rhymed, I didn't mean it to. But I think when their religious rights begin infringing on other people's human rights, that becomes a problem, and it does need to be some sort of...
And it does increasingly. Yeah. It really does increasingly infringe.
Yeah.
And I think the true future of it should be a world, and I don't know, this is an idealist, utopian idea, but a world where where people can realize that religion and science can coexist and can live to get you. I know Bill Nye has said that he doesn't believe in God, and he doesn't see them as interacting that way. But I think if you are already believing in a God who invented the world whole cloth, Why can't you believe that he invented these complicated systems? Like that doesn't make sense to me.
That's pretty much
because it doesn't fit into your paradigm. That's it. Just doesn't work. That's it.
The important thing is that these religious organizations won't have to pay taxes. I think we could.
That's a big deal right there.